It's about that time.
Stoned on Sports.
How's it going, everybody? You are tuned into Stoned on Sports Fantasy Football. My name is Matt. Got the awesome co-host Kyle here today. Week 5 is in the books. We know who's hurt. We know who's on bye next week. And if you aren't aware, I'll tell you right now, it's the Chiefs, Rams, Dolphins, and Vikings. And now it's time for waiver wire targets. One of the most important decisions you can make as we go through the fantasy football season.
Especially during bye week as well. Leagues can definitely be won and lost on the wire. You know, you could make a bad decision, make a right one. I picked up Juwan Jennings a few weeks ago and made the right decision, which was awesome. It doesn't always work out like that, but we got 10 good guys for you. Some aren't necessarily for this week. We're kind of doing a couple. We got, I think, 2 or 3. They're kind of look aheads for week 7. First guy we got for you is a tight end, and his name is Dalton Schultz with the Texans. 64% owned, so usually a little higher than we talked about, but still available in a third of leagues. The other day, he caught 4 of 6 targets, which was a season high for 34 yards, finishing as tight end 20 in week 5. And, you know, looking at his snaps, he really became, you know, quite a security blanket for CJ Stroud's there. All 6 of the Dalton Schultz targets came during the third and fourth quarters, and 4 of them came on third downs. Schultz received 5 targets in week 4 when Tank Dell was inactive, and he's had 16 targets over the last 3 games compared to 6 over the first 2 games of the season. He's tight end 22, so he's a low end tight end 2. Lines up in line over 55% of the time and about 28% in the slot. Route participation isn't too bad either for a tight end, just over 82%. But among the 22 tight ends with at least 18 targets, he does have the most pass blocking snaps taken year to date, which, you know, kind of sucks. That's the way it goes sometimes. Needs some extra help there on the line. But, you know, he's still getting plenty of looks. Among those same 22 tight ends, his yak per reception is tied for 20th, and his routes per route run is not very good. It's below 0.7. It's the worst. However, he has forced a few missed tackles this season, and he hasn't dropped a pass yet, which is nice. You want, somebody solid there that's dependable that can catch the damn ball for you. So Nico's hurt, got a hammy. Is week to week now. I think they call them yesterday.
It started off day to day. Now it's week to week.
So we believe that Dalton should see, you know, a little more bump in the targets. Week 6 is at New England. They allow the 12th most points to tight ends. New England the last 3 weeks. Week 3, they allowed 7 targets to Conklin. He caught 5 for 93. Week 4, Kittle was 4 for 4 and a touchdown. And last week, week 5, Jonnu Smith had 8 targets, 5 receptions for 63 yards. So if you're somebody that has Travis Kelce on bye this week, Dalton Schultz is an admirable replacement.
Yeah, I think so too. I rostered him last year, and it was really kind of an up and down year, but it's like that with pretty much every tight end. Now there's a good opportunity. He's probably going to be the third option in that offense now with Nico likely sitting out this week. I imagine if, you know, I'm the Texans coaching staff and I look at my upcoming opponent, it's like, all right, we can probably win this game without Nico. There's no need to really force him back in there.
Sure. I agree. And it sucks that they're without Mixon there too. Not sure when he's coming back. But Ty Chandler with the Minnesota Twins, the Minnesota Vikings. Sorry, Dubo. So Aaron Jones is hurt. The early indications are he could be back after the week 6 bye. But what if he's not back? Right? Probably better to pick up somebody like Ty Chandler right now, just in case. Right?
Yeah. Aaron Jones, he hurt his hip. He had an MRI yesterday. I've not really seen anything.
No results yet as of today. I didn't see it.
No results. And Chandler in that game started off well enough. It seemed like every rush of his was for like 4 or 5 yards, but he didn't do dick in the second half of that game. He ended up 14 attempts, 30 yards, hauled in both of his targets for another 9 yards. Not really a performance that inspires a lot of confidence. The Vikings are on bye this week, so he's more of a spec ad. Coming out of the bye, they get the Lions week 7, which is a very tough matchup for running backs. That Lions rush defense is something else, but it really lightens up after that with matchups against the Rams, the Colts, and the Jaguars. He's a pretty versatile back. He's a threat out of the backfield. One thing that I thought was kind of interesting is he has yet to break a tackle in 42 total attempts this season. It seems like he goes down at first contact, and it is what it is. Not everybody is going to be a bowling ball. He does have the benefit of a line that is run blocking very well. He is tied for 30th in yards before contact with 120 yards on just those 42 attempts. To give you a little bit of reference, David Montgomery has 5 more yards, 125 before contact on 21 more carries. Now, and we know how good that Lions line is, but that really speaks to just how much push that Vikings line is getting. Chandler is averaging about 10 touches a game, so there is a role there for him, but he's pretty inefficient, averaging just 3.9 yards per touch. Still, though, if Jones ends up missing any time, I think Chandler would be a roughly top 20 back. That offense is going pretty well now and operating very efficiently. And really that team's being carried by their defense. So in the event that Aaron Jones misses 2-3 weeks, whatever it is, there's a good chance outside of that Lions game that maybe Chandler will be called upon to really ice that game away in the second half. And we love those kind of touches, right? Just give me the guaranteed work, hand it off, dump it off to him, whatever it may be. This is a speculation kind of thing. Don't expect him to come in and be an RB1 because that's just not who he is. But if you're hurting at running back, like a lot of people are, or maybe you roster Aaron Jones, it'd be smart to pick him up just in case if you have the roster spot to burn through this week.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, he's at worst, he's, a clear handoff or handcuff to Jones there. And, in fantasy football and a lot of things, it's better to be proactive than reactive.
Yes.
A lot of teams, at least this year, are relying heavily on the run. So I think it's a good time to pick him up.
I think so too. Quarterbacks coming off of an Achilles tear, there's not really a whole lot of precedent that we can look at historically to say, what they should or should not do. A lot of it is more the skill positions, wide receivers, running backs, and they take a while. And it seemed like this year it was going to be the same thing with Kirk Cousins. We saw Aaron Jones come out and he looked a little bit mobile. He could move around a bit, and that's never really been a part of Kirk Cousins' game. He prefers a clean pocket, but over the past couple of weeks, he's really been lighting it up.
Yeah, he has, because he had a pretty slow start to the year, averaging just 11.6 fantasy points per game in the first 4 games, which put him QB 25 on the year. And that's why, his ownership wasn't super high, pretty modest at that 50% mark there. But week 5, he blew up 500 plus passing yards, 4 touchdowns, a pick, threw 58 damn passes in that overtime game and completed 42 of them. He was quarterback 1, QB 1 in week 4 for fantasy, scoring 35.4 points with that 500 passing yards. He also set the Falcons record for pass yards in a game. It's pretty good. And he was just 12 yards short of facilitating not 1, not 2, but 3 100-yard receivers in that game. Mooney and London were well over 100. Pitts was at 88. I mean, just sick. Almost 300-yard receivers in one game is nuts. So among the 28 quarterbacks that have taken at least half of their team's dropbacks, Cousins ranks 9th best PFF pass grade, pretty good. 14th in completion percentage, 12th in passer rating, 5th in passing yards. He's at 1,374 this season. He's tied for 7th in yards per attempt, tied for 5th with 8 touchdowns, which is good, but also tied for the second most picks with 5. ADOT's not horrible. He's 11th. It's 8 flat. He hasn't taken many sacks, only 10. It's the 8th least in the league. He's 7th in expected points added. I mean, I think, he's a veteran. He's going to be a hot ad right now while he's heating up. Great matchup at Carolina, week 6. They allow the 4th most points to QB. He's a high-end QB2 for me this week with, QB1 upside really moving forward.
Yeah, I think so too. And thinking about that game where he just went absolute fucking ham. I know this isn't Kirk Cousins, but how in the hell did you not use Bijan more than that? It's not like the game was a blowout. The shit was close the entire way through.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, the ghost of Arthur Smith is calling plays there. But no, Kirk Cousins, I mean, look, he's been a rock steady quarterback in the NFL now for several years, a little bit over a decade, because I think he he got drafted in 2012, the year at the time Redskins brought in RG3, and then we saw what happened with him.
Yep.
I think we all expected Cousins to go down there and just start slinging it around the field from the very first game. And that's not necessarily been the reality of what's happened. But at the same time, he's still recovering from that injury. I saw, what was it? I think it was last week where he said, as long as the pocket's clean, I'm good. It's when I have to move around that's where he's having the issues. And I'm sure there's a psychological aspect as well that goes along with it.
Sure. Yep. I don't blame you there. Another QB for you. So if you got Mahomes or Sam Darnold on bye this week, boy, do we have a great fill-in for you. Matchups are important, right? And Caleb Williams has a doozy versus the Jaguars, who are allowing the most fantasy points to quarterbacks this season. Tell us more, Matt.
If you've got Patrick Mahomes, I would consider dropping him. Honestly, he's not giving you the return that you hope for, but we ain't talking about him. We're talking about Caleb Williams right now. He's coming off what you could consider his best game as a pro against Carolina. He was 20 of 29 for 304 yards, a couple touchdowns. He also chipped in 34 yards on the ground. He became the 4th rookie to win his first 3 home starts without throwing an interception since 1950. That's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
He's thrown for 300 yards in 2 of 3. In the other game, he threw for over 300 yards. It was on like 52 attempts. So last week, he was much more efficient. This season, he's completing 62.9% of his passes. He's got 1,091 yards, 5 touchdowns, 4 picks. He's actually tied with Jared Goff in red zone attempts at 23. And we had a feeling coming into the season that the Bears would be looking to air things out, given the offseason moves that they made, bringing in a pass catching back or, a running back that can catch like DeAndre Swift. And they drafted Rome Odunze. They brought in Keenan Allen. And it hasn't really worked out like that. His 170 attempts is 10th in the league, but his yardage is 15th. His 6.4 yards per attempt is like Daniel Jones, Andy Dalton territory. It's not awful, but it's not great. You definitely want to see his yards per attempt higher than that. He has some really good matchups on the horizon. He's got the Jags in London, like you mentioned. Then they've got a bye. After that, it's the Commanders, the Cardinals, the Patriots, and the Packers, right? The Patriots probably have the best defense of that bunch, but the Commies, the Cards, and the Pack really struggle stopping the pass. And now we're starting to see Keenan Allen showing some signs of life, as is DeAndre Swift. He's had a couple of back-to-back really solid games to help take the pressure off. Is Caleb Williams going to be a QB1 the rest of the way? No. But over the next 4 or 5 weeks, I think he can give you QB1 level play just based on the matchups that they're going up against, the tools that they have around him, and the improvement that we've seen every week so far this season. It almost seems like things are starting to slow down for him a little
Yeah.
bit, because that is a massive jump coming from college, even though he went to USC, which, at the time was a Pac-12 school. So we're talking, major college football. It's not like he was, Air McNair going to Alcorn State,
Sure.
playing against a bunch of dudes that are selling insurance or whatever the hell they're doing now. He went up against pretty legit competition and he excelled. Now, the knock on him coming into the season was, while he was at USC, he struggled against the higher tier competition, which is a perfectly valid criticism, right? But at the same time, he was the unquestioned number one pick in the draft. There was really nobody else given consideration, and for a very good reason. He's not the biggest dude in the world, but he's got good arm talent. He's a good athlete. As he showed last week, he can get outside of the pocket and make plays with his legs. He can even get you, 30, 40 rushing yards a game. That's an extra 3 or 4 points that can be the difference between a loss and a win.
Yeah, I just lost by 4 points a couple weeks ago. So it happens. And yeah, in the improvement, just from watching the first couple of games to this last week, definitely shown improvement against the blitz. Definitely shown improvement on deep throws, anything 15 plus air yards. You can see some difference in him. And he's got a great defense there that should give him plenty of opportunities.
Absolutely. And if they can sustain the success in the running game and keep that pressure off of him, look, I get he's the highly touted rookie and he's got, all these skills and all this talent and everything else. But you don't want a rookie. And as a matter of fact, probably 80% of the quarterbacks in the NFL, you don't want them throwing it more than 30 or 32 times a game. The more you throw, the more you have an opportunity to get exposed and your shortcomings come to the surface.
Yep. A lot of things can go wrong.
I find it kind of interesting that the guy who is leading the NFL in yards per carry at 8 flat is available in 75% of leagues. I know we've talked about him a couple times now already, but apparently you guys aren't listening.
Yeah.
Pick his ass up.
Yep. He is beginning to look very much like the featured back in Jacksonville. This past week, he cleared 100 rushing yards on just 13 carries against the Colts. He had 2 touchdowns and he caught a ball for 28 yards. He was RB1 in PPR. Well, yeah, he was RB1 because I don't think anybody did that good last night, but because these notes are from the day before. And for the first time this season, Bigsby actually outsnapped Etienne while also outrushing him and outgaining him as well. So, there's kind of, I know Matt hates the 1A, 1B committee type thing, that phrase there, but it's kind of how it's going to work for them. Tank Bigsby played 40% of snaps in week 5. Etienne was 39%, but Bigsby had over 50% of the attempts, where Etienne was just about a quarter of rushing attempts. And, Bigsby didn't have much to do there in the receiving game. That was mostly Etienne running a route 44% of the time and getting most of the targets from the running back room. And watching that game the other day, the rotation there was pretty normal for the first 5-6 drives. And then after that, when Bigsby had that 19-yard touchdown, 20-yard touchdown run, that was kind of the turning point in usage there. Tank played 11 snaps from that point on compared to Etienne's 2. So is Bigsby a shoe-in fantasy starter? Maybe. I don't think quite yet until he sustains, the workload and the performance resulting from that. We'll see. The volume feels unlikely to decrease based on what he's done so far. He keeps showing big playability. He had that 65-yard touchdown run. And then the week before that had a long run too. It was over 50, 60 yards right around there as well. So he's got some nice underlying metrics here. So among the 48 running backs with 30 rushing attempts, ranks 4th in PFF rush grade, 1st in yards per carry at 8 flat that Matt mentioned, 1st in yards after the catch per attempt at 6.47. The next closest is Antonio Gibson, a full 2 yards less. He's 1st in rushing yards over expected, 1st in breakaway rate, 1st in elusive rating, 3rd in explosive run rate. He's tied for 5th in the in most missed tackles forced. Say that right, Kyle, with 18 of them. And he's very highly graded on PFF and pass block grade. He's 5th. Etienne's is the 3rd worst. So you might see Bigsby on the field in those situations a hell of a lot more than you'll see Etienne. I don't think that, Matt, maybe you'll disagree, but I don't think Bigsby has to completely unseat Etienne to become, fantasy viable. I think they can still be kind of great there with the old Thunder and Lightning pair there, but Bigsby should see the majority of early down work. And, we'll see. I think he's a priority waiver target this week. He's been the better runner so far this season. And they travel to Chicago in week 6, a team that allows the 10th most points to running backs this season. I'd pick him up and lock him in this week.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and agree with that. You could almost say he's been a tank out there on the field.
Yes.
And the funny thing is, he is, at least according to Pro Football Reference, he's the same weight as Travis Etienne, but just an inch taller. He's 5'11", 215. Etienne's 5'10", 215. I don't think he's going to become, we'll call it like the primary back. I think if anything, this could morph into, a 1A. You got Bigsby in there for some early down work and Etienne coming in, in passing situations and third downs and whatnot. And I get that, Bigsby has looked better in pass pro, but Etienne is a much better receiver. And that really means a lot. Maybe we'll see some scenarios with both of them on the field. Who knows? We'll see if Press Taylor can get creative. I'm not going to hold my breath, but you never know.
No, you never do. All right. So after Monday Night Football yesterday, it appears the Chiefs are going to lean heavily on JuJu Smith-Schuster moving forward due to Rashee Rice's injury. And while the Chiefs are on a bye this week in week 6, it's never too early to look ahead to the following week. Here's Matt to tell you more.
Yes. He was the wide receiver 13 this week, 7 for 130 with 8 targets. Those 8 targets were second only to Travis Kelce's 10, and he was second in receptions on the team with 7 behind Travis Kelce. He was third in wide receiver routes run with 27, but it was only 4 fewer than Xavier Worthy's 31, so I ain't really worried about that. The Chiefs are on bye in week 6, so there's not going to be an immediate impact, but at least in my mind, he is a priority add. He looks to have filled the Rashee Rice role in the offense, but, we do want to keep in mind that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to see the same results. However, he showed good rapport with Mahomes when he was there in 2022. He had 78 grabs for 933, just 3 touchdowns, but that it is what it is. We also want to keep in mind there's a chance that Mahomes spreads the ball around a little bit more in the coming weeks with Mecole Hardman returning from injury and Xavier Worthy continuing to establish himself. The Chefs have the Niners, Raiders, and Buccaneers coming out of the bye. And look, this is something where we want to remember sometimes it doesn't matter who the player is, it's what role they have. And if JuJu is going to consistently fill the same role that Rashee Rice had, the production is going to be there. We saw Rashee Rice come on at the end of last season and the beginning of this season. He was, a legit wide receiver 1. Do I think JuJu is going to be there? Probably not. But I do think that there is a damn good chance that you can go right now and pick up a solid wide receiver 2 off the wire in an offense in dire need of some legitimate, stable pass catchers And it's not unlike the situation with Kareem Hunt, where it's all right. Yeah, he's a little bit older, but it's the role. It's not the player. You want to remember, JuJu is still young. He's still just 27 years old. It seems like he's been around forever.
Yeah.
Because he spent all those years in Pittsburgh. He was with Kansas City. He went to New England and did fuck all there. And then, he's back with KC at a time where they absolutely need him. And just kind of going through and watching a bit last night. Yeah, Xavier Worthy, he got some looks. They handed off to him a couple times, but he's, still a rookie. There's still some rawness to his game, and he's not ready yet to be that alpha guy in the offense at the wide receiver position for the Chiefs. And quite frankly, he may never be that guy. But at the same time, JuJu has a track record of being a steady contributor. And with all the injuries we've seen so far this season, and now we're really into the thick of bye weeks, being able to get somebody who, yes, he's on bye this week, but I know I put in claims for him in all of my leagues because my team's been hit. I mean, there's a team where I lost Rashee Rice. You bet your ass I'm going to put in for JuJu. And maybe this was a 1 week mirage. We don't know. But at the same time, I'm going to take the chance that it wasn't.
Yeah. Just on the rapport that they had in 2022. He caught 78 balls for over 900 yards. From Mahomes. So I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, same here.
Supersonic wants to know Ray McLeod for this week. And targets. He's been getting plenty of targets too. He's had 16 of them the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, once we're getting down to the Ray McLeod levels of desperation,
it's
really
a very, very deep league option. For sure.
Yeah, he's a deep league option. And if he's somebody you're considering, just understand it's a dart throw at best.
Yeah, agreed.
I remember in draft season, everybody was hyping up Zamir White. He was going to be the shit. He did so awesome at the end of last year. He had, I don't know, 400-yard games to end the year, or whatever the hell it was, once they sat down Josh Jacobs. And lo and behold, here we are in week 6. Zamir White missed last week. He's been ineffective, and he even lost goal line touches to Alexander Mattison, who has looked to carve himself out a nice little role in an offense that admittedly is kind of struggling, but volume is king.
Yeah, it's rough. The week 6 matchup isn't superb, but, going into last week, it looked like, the Raiders around the campfire there that they were already planning on giving Mattison some extra touches, and then Zamir White got hurt, so it kind of worked out. And he has had a knack for finding the end zone. He scored 3 times, like Matt mentioned, over the first 3 games of Las Vegas. So he is finding the end zone. So it's possible the 17 touches he got in week 5 were not necessarily because Zamir White was hurt. Now, he didn't do shit with those 17 touches, but bye weeks are here, and grabbing you any player that can give you 15 plus touches is a better bet than most. He had the 17 touches, washed the ball 15 times for just 38 yards, 2 receptions on 3 targets for 23 yards, and he finishes RB 27 in PPR. Not that you want, not what you want. And he was so ineffective. His longest rush went for 8 yards, and he averaged just 2.5 a carry. Just pitiful.
That Broncos defense is kind of tough, though.
It is good. And, probably the Raiders probably stuck with him too long. Mattison dominated the playing time for the first 3 quarters, playing 39 of a possible 48 snaps, but he was just so efficient, and that allowed Amir Abdullah to come in and steal some snaps in the fourth quarter, where he had 8 touches and over 14 fantasy points. Played all 22 snaps. The only snap was Mattison only returned to the game on the 2-point conversion he scored. That's it. So it wouldn't really be a surprise if you see Amir Abdullah mix more in week 6. I don't know. The backfield there's getting a little more crowded, but Mattison still remains, my favorite to roster when White is injured. I mentioned the matchup's not very good. They play Pittsburgh. They've allowed the 4th fewest points to running backs, but bye weeks, man. When they kick in, or they're in, and you're forced to make a desperate decision to fill a hole in your lineup, it's important to target volume to give yourself the best possible chance to get some points.
I agree. So we got Joshua here joining us. Should he look to trade Bijan? He's short on wide receiver. Who would be a good comp? And that is an interesting question, we'll say, because, he was a first round pick this year, a high first round pick. And now what is he? He's the RB 18. He's been giving you double digit points every week, which, all right, that's fine. That should be a minimum expectation. But if you're trading him, you're going to end your number one, you're selling low. So you're going to be, selling him for 80 cents on the dollar, 75 cents on the dollar, something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Ugh, that's tough.
It is.
It's tough. That's like, who do you think that? I'm trying to think of a receiver that would be.
If
Garrett Wilson maybe is a comp now ish.
Maybe, but if they end up with Devontae Adams, like his value is going to diminish. I would probably start with maybe somebody like Mike Evans. He's been hot the past couple of weeks, but he got off to that slower start. Somewhere around there, I don't think you're going to get a Jamar Chase, a Justin Jefferson.
No.
You're not going to get a top tier receiver, but I'd look somewhere like maybe in that 10 to 17 range. If you're going to move him, maybe you can get lucky and find an owner who still believes that Bijan is a top 5 player. Yeah. I mean, talent-wise, he is, and we were talking about this earlier when we were talking about Kirk Cousins. It's like Arthur Smith still just exudes control over that Falcons team and says, no, you're only getting a few touches. We need to work in Tyler Algier.
He had like 14, or I think he had 15 on Sunday. But, yeah, he's not getting CMC touches, 22, 23 a game. I don't know. Receivers 10 through 17 right now in PPR: Evans, Metcalf, Jawan Jennings, Lamb, Moore, Mooney, Garrett Wilson, and Rashid Shaheed.
Well, Rashid Shaheed is out because Derek Carr is going to be gone for a while. And a lot of what Shaheed is doing, I don't necessarily think is all that sustainable. It's a lot of, bomb passes. Jawan Jennings is toast.
Yeah.
I would start with like Mike Evans, DK Metcalf, start from there and see what you can get done.
Yeah. Yeah. That's,
if you have like a league chat or anything like that, just put it out there. Hey, Bijan's available.
Yeah. If you got
and see what offers come to you.
Maybe you got a Falcons fan in your league. Sometimes you can really grind the screws, because then people I've been guilty of homerism as well, where I maybe overpaid a little too much or just didn't care and got who I wanted. But
yeah, we got Loud Boy with a question. J.K. Dobbins or Najee Harris?
Jeez. Looks like Najee's still going to get the bulk of the carries again. Cordarrelle's hurt again. Warren's already been ruled again for week 6. So volume-wise, it'll be Harris. But he hasn't been super effective. Who the Chargers play this week?
The Broncos.
Oh, I don't like that either.
That's a tough matchup. I'm going to go with the more talented back. And I'm going to go J.K. Dobbins. He has looked so much better than Najee Harris has this year. I understand Harris has a little bit better matchup, or maybe a lot of bit better matchup.
He does, yeah. The Las Vegas is 6th most points to running backs.
He should get the volume, but I mean, he's been getting the volume and it hasn't done jack squat with it.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Dobbins.
You are welcome, Joshua. Give us a like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Here every Tuesday and Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, and Sundays at 12 noon Eastern for any of your last-minute questions, start, sit, whatever, shoot the shit special show. Yeah.
Good luck, dude.
Heck yeah. What do we got next here?
We're talking more running backs. And
yeah. Tyrone Tracy. My brother needed to fill in late last weekend, and I was able to have him pick him up and plug him in, and that worked out nice. And he had the best rushing performance of any Giants running back so far this season, filling in for Singletary. If Singletary's out again, great matchup in week 6 versus the Bengals. They just gave up 175 rushing yards. What do you think about him?
He's an interesting play. After seeing a total of just 12 carries through the first 4 weeks, he exploded for 18 for 129. Didn't find the end zone. He had a couple targets, brought in 1 for 1 yard. Which whatever that is, what it is, but still in a PPR, that's 1.1 points. He was incredibly efficient at 7.2 yards a carry, and he helped that Giants offense top 21 points for the first time this season. He was a wide receiver that converted to running back in his last season at Purdue. And I imagine with this performance, he's likely going to see some more passing down work because of that.
You would think.
You would think. And as a matter of fact, he's been in almost exclusively on passing downs up to this point, but he has been used all over the field. In the backfield, he's got 11 snaps in the slot. He's got 11 snaps out wide. And just this past week, his 97 yards before contact was the best in the league by a very wide margin. And he even contributed 32 yards after contact, which was 16th. PFF has him as a better runner than Devin Singletary and slightly worse in pass pro. Singletary, at least in my opinion, has not really shown that he's all that great in pass pro, and he's not shown that he's all that great as a receiver either. I think this performance is going to have him increase his snap share going forward. He displayed explosiveness that we just haven't seen from Singletary. The offense itself is not what we would consider an explosive offense. There's a lot of explosions going on here, apparently. But he's shown what he can do when he gets the rock. Next few matchups are kind of The Bengals, the Eagles, and the Steelers are the next 3. And I probably don't want any part of that Steelers matchup. But this dude carried the ball that many times and gained positive yardage on every single attempt. I mean, the dude looked like a home run hitter. And, to compare him to somebody like Antonio Gibson, who was another converted wide receiver. Antonio Gibson was wide receiver there at Memphis, came into the league, switched to running back. And he's been, all right, I guess, kind of. Right. But Tyrone Tracy, complete another level. And really the Giants, I can't believe I was just going to say that they've been looking for a running back since they lost Saquon. Well, that was just last fucking season. They brought in Devin Singletary. He had history with Brian Dable, but I think the Giants have something here in Tyrone Tracy. I think he's going to carve out a nice role for himself. Obviously, if Singletary's out, I'm going to run his ass out there, right? Regardless of who they're playing because of the whole volume thing. It remains to be seen if he's going to get enough touches and enough snaps to have standalone value. But just considering the differences in what we've seen in the production between him and Singletary, it would be very difficult for me as a coach to keep his ass on the bench.
Yeah.
Give him 35, 40% of the snaps and let's see what he can do with that on a regular basis.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Singletary didn't have 18 carries yet in a game.
No.
Close, but not there. So, yeah, it's I was impressed with him as well. And I think he's a great pickup this week against Cincinnati. There
could be some points scored in that game. Cincinnati's defense is just straight ass, homie.
And that's a Sunday night game as well. So
it is. The bright lights. The Lions get the Cowboys this upcoming week, and the Cowboys are going to be without Brandon Cooks. He got some kind of infection in his knee after having a minor procedure done after that Giants game, and he's on IR now. And back in the day, we always look for those third-year wide receivers to break out. And now that timeline is a little bit accelerated. Typically, we see guys break out second year, or in the case of some people, first year. But Jalen Tolbert, in his third year, he's going to get some run over the next few weeks to show what he can do. How would you feel about adding him?
For this week, it's a great matchup versus Detroit. And Tolbert had a great week 5. He actually played more snaps than CD Lamb and about the same number of routes. So I think that shows, the confidence that Dallas has in him. And him out snapping Lamb had a lot more to do with Tolbert staying on the field for more running situations than Lamb did. But he delivered a career best performance. I'm in a primetime stage in week 5, finished with 7 receptions on 10 targets, 87 yards and a touchdown, wide receiver 12 in PPR. He also had a 6-catch, 80-yard performance in week 2, and he scored a touchdown in week 3. So he's at least 12 PPR points in 3 of his last 4 games. I think that makes him one of the more attractive waiver wire options at wide receiver this week, even at 7% own. I think he's well worth a look. He's damn talented. He's second now on the depth chart there, and he appears to have developed some type of trust there with Dak. They spent a lot of time together. In fact, Dak said he spent the most time in the offseason together with Tolbert. That can only help. Among the 50 wide receivers with at least 25 targets, he's got a PFF receiving grade that ranks not great. It's 31st, but he has the 9th best passer rating when targeted, 20th in yards per reception, 10th in percentage of targets caught at 74%. ADOT's not too bad, just over 13 yards. That puts him 11th best. Just hasn't brought much yak to the table. Just 47 total yards. I'd like to see a little bit more of that from him. But favorable spot this week against the Lions. That defense has given up the 11th most points to wide receivers in fantasy. So I think this guy should be on the top of your list if you're looking for wide receivers. The Cowboys have shit for a running game. They're going to throw a lot. And, with Brandon Cooks not able to come back until at least November, target volume shouldn't be a worry for Tolbert here, over the next few weeks.
Agree wholeheartedly. You mean you're not a believer in Rico Dowdle?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, me either.
All right. Given how dismal the tight end position has been this year, Tyler Conklin's 23 targets over the last 3 weeks are, I believe, worthy of much higher roster rates. Matt, if you got fantasy managers struggling at tight end, can Conklin help them? Certainly he can help with a nice floor play in week 6.
Sure. And there's an asterisk here because the Jets are rumored to be pushing hard for Devontae Adams. So in the event that they get him, that would be, obviously a negative impact on his target share. But he's one of just 9 tight ends averaging over 10 points per game over the last 3 weeks. And he is the only tight end over the last 3 weeks to have at least 6 targets in every game. Though he's just 15th in target share at 14.7%, he has 7 plays over 10 yards and 4 over 20, and he's hauled in 17 of 18 catchable targets this year. On the season, he's got 27 targets, 17 grabs for 181. Those 181 yards are 9th at the position. The 17 receptions is 10th. He's also top 10 in yards after the catch and yards after contact. We all heard by now that Robert Saleh has been let go, but through an act of God, Nathaniel Hackett somehow remains in place. Although word around the campfire is he may have play calling duties removed from him, which I think would be a win for everybody because he is absolutely terrible. And this just goes to show you the power of nepotism and just how successful you can be being buddies with Aaron Rodgers. Their next 3 matchups, they got the Bills, the Steelers, and the Patriots. Obviously, that Steelers matchup isn't one that, you can really take advantage of. That defense is playing great, but the Bills defense has not looked all that good. The Patriots defense is solid, I guess. Aaron Rodgers has been up and down to this point. Some games he looks really good. Other games he looks like a, 41-year-old dude coming off a torn Achilles. right? I've never really been somebody who's been high on Tyler Conklin just because he's never really given a reason to be high on him.
Yeah.
At the same time, this little run that he's on, he's been very, very steady. Tight end has been an absolute disaster so far this year. And if you tell me, all right, I'm going to give you a tight end that's going to get 6 targets every week, I'm going to take it.
I'm going to take it. Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, his ceiling isn't massive really whatsoever, but in this year's tight end landscape, he's a freaking solid option.
Yeah.
And you know, pacing the Bills this week, yeah, they might need to throw the ball quite a bit in that one. So we'll see.
I mean, he's a tight end 15. He's averaging 7 points a game in a PPR. That has him 15th overall. But I mean, the 12th place tight end, Dalton Kincaid, is only averaging 7.5.
Yeah. Good ad for sure. I wanted to touch on the listener league there. We had the results from week 5. I won. Matt lost to Dubo. That is 4 in a row for Dubo, I believe. I think he started out 0-1 and he's won 4 in a row. Loud Boy won. Congrats to you, sir. AJ took down Ramey, and Brandon Pizza Boy took down our buddy out there in Idaho. So the standings, Dubo, first in the league. Yeah, 1-4 in a row. It's amazing. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I need to score some points, man.
That would help. You actually have 4 more points than me.
Well, and as we learned in the fantasy baseball league, hey man, those points matter when it comes end of the season and we're looking at tiebreakers.
Yep, that we just saw it happen in the baseball league, you know. So it happens. Heck yeah. All right, 7:45. We'll get out of here. You got anything to talk about? Any little housekeeping?
I thought I wasn't supposed to talk at the end of the show while you do your outro.
You can do
here silently.
Do the outro. Say what you want.
No, that's
Do
your
what you
deal.
Want. Thursday. We'll be back Thursday at 7. Start sits and some other BS we'll talk about as well. I think we'll have a lot of good ones. When I was kind of starting to look at it yesterday a little bit on who might be some good options and maybe a couple sneaky options as well. So to help you guys get through your week 6 buys. Give us a like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Again, back Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Everybody have a great night. We're out of here. See you later.
We've been pretty good with the start sits too.
We have been, what did I tell you? 23-32 correct so far through 4 weeks. Through 4 weeks. I hadn't looked at week 5 to see how we did, but not too bad. 71% correct.
That'll work.
Could be worse, but
all right.
All right.
See you, folks.
Later.